Okay, so I'm getting ready to install the piston rings onto the piston. I already did the oil rings. I figured I'd stop real quick and kind of explain stuff. So in case you don't know, you're going to have a graphite ring and then you're going to have a silver colored ring. And your graphite colored ring is always going to be the bottom ring. And you always want to see how it has an N on there. Always put your lettering or any markings pointing upwards towards the top of the piston. Anyways, checking your ring end gap is you put your piston ring in there just like this, and then I already did this, so everything's spec'd out how it needed to be. But anyways, go in here, push your piston ring down. You'll see where it's level all the way around. Basically, that's good enough. Then you want to take your feeler gauge. You're gonna go in there and you're gonna feel for what ring gap you have, which, like I said, I already did mine and I already know what it is. I did both of them, and the directions will tell you what exactly to do as well. In my case, it's every inch of bore. You should multiply that by 4/1000, and then that should give you the ring gap clearance. Anyways, right now I got my piston rings installed. So you want your piston, basically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do this on camera. So your cylinder and your piston would be in the bike in this orientation, basically. And when you flip these over, you should be able to do this. You can see also real quick, you can see where the piston rings have, you see this one is facing that way and that gap is facing that way. And then it's good to oil this first, of course. I'm just using Rotella, some 1540 Rotella. That's what I run in pretty much everything. Like I said, I would have replaced this piston, but the guy wants to do this as cheap as he can, so that's what we are doing. I get as much oil on those rings as I can. So now, say your piston goes into the bike like that. You can put it upside down like this, and I have to squeeze the rings down. It's going to be really hard to do on camera, but I'll see if I can do it. And the easiest way to get these rings in is basically look for the gap and say where the gap is on this side, go from the back side and then squeeze it. Try not to spin the piston when you do this too, but there we go. Want it to go in just like that. As for your oil rings, they should just slide right on in there, and you can see how I did that. So now all your piston rings are down. It's okay to turn it just a tad bit, but don't be spinning it. Otherwise, you're going to lose where your piston ring gap is at, and you're just totally going to screw yourself on that, and you're going to have no compression. So you can see I got the piston oriented in this way. I'm going to go to the bike right now and install this. Now it's time to install the cylinder and the piston together. As you can see in the last clip I did this. I'm making sure the intake was pointed that way. And this is going to make life so much easier installing the cylinder, because it's a pain to install the cylinder and the piston, or just putting the cylinder over the piston and the rings and everything like that. Put this rag right here. And what this will do is just keep things from dropping into the cylinder. There we go. You can see how smooth that just went in. And now, hopefully we can keep the cylinder from sliding all the way down, but usually I'll just kind of jam a wrench or something so I can kind of keep it. Just put my wrench like that, and then now it's time to take the circlip and very carefully install it. And see right there how I just dropped that? That's what shoving a rag here does. So holding that with one hand, and then using a pick tool or a small flathead or something usually is the easiest way to get these in. So just like this. And you just pry up a little bit and it goes right in. And you make sure it's pushed all the way in. And it's seated inside the little crevice that it has. And you turn your circlip with your pick tool or whatever, and do that, and you can drop tools at the same time like I did. Now your rag can come out of there, and you should be able to, as long as your alignment dowels and everything are down, slide your cylinder down while using a tool of some sort to reach in the other side, and grab your little hook tool like I made. Let's see if my magnetic tool will work first. And grab the timing chain and pull it up, make sure it ain't bunching up, and then you can slide your cylinder down, and then using something else to hold the timing chain down from falling, keep the timing chain from falling back in. So on these XRs, you're going to have a long stud and a short stud for the cylinders. If I remember correctly, I believe the short studs go on this side and the long ones go on that side. Yep, just like that, because you want them to be pretty much equal. And then torque specs on those are, you want to start off at 27 foot-pounds and then in a crisscross pattern, and then go back and then finish them off with 31 foot-pounds. And on the other side, you're going to have what used to be 8mm, and I'll show you what I did over there for whoever, the next guy that has to work on this later down the road, or if I ever have to again. What I did is I'm going to replace these with Allen head fasteners and use a ball end Allen wrench to put these in, and this makes life 100 times easier. But I'm going to set my torque wrench to 27. Just going to kind of snug them up first. So that way they're all equally nice and tight before I go torquing on them. There's 27. There's 27. There's 27 right there. 30, right, 34. It says to do 31, but I'm going to do 34. Just because I feel like it would be a good idea. There we go. One thing I have forgotten to do hundreds of times while doing this on mini engines is forget to install the front timing chain guide, and I figured I'd throw this in here real quick. So what you're going to do is throw this guy in here, make sure it seats. You should have no bottom end play or anything like that. Put your alignment dowels in. They should slide in nice and smooth. At this point, you can drop the timing chain down in there as long as you got a magnetic tool or a hook tool like I made. Just don't turn the engine over or anything like that, because you can break your case halves if the chain bunches up down there. So in my case, it's going to be easier to use my chain tool, or I mean my magnetic tool, to reach in there and pull it up. The torque specs for this is going to be the exact same as the cylinder itself. You're going to start off at 27 and move up to 31. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at 27, I'm going to go up to 34. Get a 17mm socket and put your engine on top of the center. There we go. Oh, moved. There we go, that should be perfectly top dead center right there. It's going to move, so I expect that. Okay, so installing the cam gear, as you can see right here, there's two little lines on one side and there's none on the other side. You want those two lines facing the right side of the bike, and try to get them lined up as close as you can. Get all my stuff out of here real quick. So what I'm going to do, I'll put this all in here real fast, just like that. And I actually have the timing on this side perfect, so let's hope that the engine's still on top dead center. Now in order to install the cam and get everything lined up, you're going to want to hold this, take the screwdriver, whatever you have holding that out, put your cam in, just like this. And then you're going to want to go like that. And you take your bearings, putting the seal facing towards the outsides of the engine. Put these in first. And then you want to take these little alignment dowels, put them in, and then you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. On this side, you're going to want to kind of lift and push it that way. Put this cam bearing in with the seal on the outside. It's the same concept, 400EX2 and XR400s. Get this alignment dowel, and you're going to want to push it into its hole. Sometimes it can be a little pain. There we go. Be a little bit tricky. And then just let your cam bearings drop into place. And now, assuming that your timing is still perfectly on, mine's off just a little. I need to go reset it top dead center on the other side, because you will have a little bit of an issue with this moving a little bit on you. So keep double checking your top dead center before you go throwing this thing all the way together. Alright, so assuming that you are on top dead center like I am, how you get the camshaft onto the cam gear is you're going to push down on this right here, and then you're going to lift, and that should, it takes a little effort, but it should slip on over. I would suggest cleaning the bolts, and assuming they're good, cleaning the bolts really well with some gasoline, and then using some red Loctite to Loctite these bolts into place, because you don't want these backing out or anything like that and causing any kind of damage after you just spent hours rebuilding these things. These XR250 engines are not any fun to take apart or put together. I gotta say, it's probably one of my least favorite. The XR250 and the 400EX. Good bikes though. Alright, so to get these bolts in, you're going to want to push down this, otherwise it pulls the timing gear down really hard, and you can take the chance of cross threading, or you'll never get the bolt to line up or anything like that, and it is a pain in the ass. At this point the engine spins a little bit. It's perfectly okay, because you at least have it timed. This is the time now that you want to rotate the engine over 180 degrees or 360 degrees, whatever it is. Ooh, that thing's got some crazy amounts of compression now. So now that I got those both Loctited and put in, you should be safe to torque them. I'm just going to give it a good snug. I'll rotate the engine over. Top dead center, your lobes should be pointing down. The easiest way to tighten these is just get it against one of the valve springs. Don't crank it down like crazy, just give it a good snug. Just like that. And that should be more than good enough, especially with some Loctite in there. You should not go anywhere. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double check the timing, and I'm going to get this with the lobes pointing down and that bolt pointing upwards, completely up, and I should be perfectly on the letter T on the flywheel. And then here you're going to have the letter T, just like I said. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up. Everything should be perfectly aligned. And at this point, you should be safe to start putting your valve cap back on. Actually, I almost forgot. First, you wanna put your cam stay in place, which is this guy. I almost forgot about that. So these bolts, they should be torqued to 14 foot-pounds, but you're fine to just kind of snug them up by hand with a 1/4 inch ratchet. Just don't go crazy on them. You know, just snug them and then do a 1/4 turn with the ratchet, 1/4 inch ratchet, and that should be more than good enough. So they're snug now. 1 full 1/4 turn. And right there, I'm going to say snug. And then 1 full 1/4 turn. And that should be more than enough. So as for installing your valve cap, what you're going to want to do is remove these covers right here, and I'll show you why in just a second. And you're going to want some O-rings or something handy. Okay. So installing this, as you can see down in there, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but I put some O-rings around all of the lifters. And what that's going to do is allow me to put this valve cover on without those falling, and then you don't know it and your valve lash is all weird and you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So you're going to hold this bolt while putting this in, and then it should drop in nice and easy, just like that. Alright, so while holding this bolt, you're going to have to mess with the decompression lifter over here on the other side. If your head has RFVC, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a little lifter over there you're going to need to move around in order to get it to clear the valve and get it to set down nicely. And all these bolts up here, I believe, are 8 foot-pounds, around that range, 8 to 10 foot-pounds. It shouldn't hurt if you go a little bit over. I always prefer to go a little bit over. You're going to want to do this in a crisscross pattern, of course, when tightening these. Don't need to watch me every. I figured you don't need to watch me every single bolt I tighten, but like I said before, from snug, just do a whole quarter turn and then double check all the bolts. And it's really all it needs for these. In my opinion, that's good enough. That's close enough to 8 to 10 foot-pounds. Alright, so before I get too far on this, what I want to do really quick, before I even take those O-rings or anything off, is I'm just going to kick it over real fast with the spark plug in it with the boot removed, and just feel the compression real fast. It's pretty good to me. And in order to remove these little rubber bands that are in there, just grab them with a pair of needle nose pliers and a pair of dikes, or even just a pair of needle nose pliers, and just pull them out, and that should be good enough. But I am going to check the valve lash as well since I'm in here.